The Maldives is a paradise under threat. This cluster of 1,200 islands is expected to sink into the Indian Ocean as sea levels continue to rise. It's the country most at risk of global warming. But it has a plan to build its way out of the crisis by creating a whole city that floats above sea level. But that's not the full story. They are also building this insane business hub. So how does that fit together? Hey, I'm Luis, this is MegaBuilds, and once again we'll take a look at a slate of megaprojects. And this time they're about saving the Maldives' very existence, and even beyond that. The Maldives is a special place. Warm turquoise water, rich marine life and white sandy beaches. For decades, wealthy tourists have come to the Maldives for its beauty and isolation. But it's not such an easy place for humans to live on. Most of the country's nearly 1,200 reef islands are empty. And those that people do live on barely reach the surface. The Maldives are the lowest lying islands in the world. As sea levels rise with global warming, this country faces an existential crisis. The vast majority of the Maldives could be underwater by the turn of the century. That's an especially big problem in Malé, the capital city. Major parts of it sit below a meter above sea level, and it's surrounded by concrete seawalls. More than 250,000 people live in Malé, which spans roughly 8 square kilometers. And even though it's a small place, the numbers actually make it one of the most crowded cities in the world. And all of those people are at risk as sea levels continue to rise. The Maldives government already spends 30% of its budget adapting to climate change, but it's not enough.
Our survival, our food, our revenue, all depends on ocean resources.
So what's the country to do? They're trying almost everything, including building an entire floating city, the first of its kind in the world. The plan is to build 5,000 floating homes inside a shallow lagoon, plus hotels, retails and restaurants, even a mosque and football fields. And it will all be laid out in a series of hexagon puzzle pieces. It kind of resembles a honeycomb pattern, but according to designers it's actually inspired by brain coral, one of 4 kinds of coral found all over the Maldives reefs. Once in the floating city, people can get around on more than 16 kilometers of floating roads. But not in cars, those aren't allowed. These roads are designed exclusively for bikes and electric buggies. So how did this plan come about? It all began more than 15 years ago, basically as a publicity stunt. Maldives president Mohammed Nasheed made it his mission to win environmental justice for island nations, and that would take large countries with big carbon footprints caring about tiny island nations like the Maldives. Nasheed knew he needed some bold ideas if he wanted the world media to pay attention, and he even held an underwater cabinet meeting to prove his point. Back then, a floating city was just one of several ideas the government was considering. However, Nasheed's presidency ended abruptly in 2012, and for a while the idea went away. But in 2019, the Maldives returned to the plan of building a floating city. And in 2021, they formally committed to the project with the builder Dutch Docklands. And by then, Mohammed Nasheed was back in office, this time as a Speaker of Parliament. Building a city that floats is a massive undertaking, and their goal is to incorporate it into the surrounding natural landscape, which will be this shallow lagoon right here. That gives the project 2 advantages out of the gate. First, a shallow seabed. This makes it easier to anchor the entire city into the ground. Second, the lagoon already has a coral reef perimeter. That provides natural shelter to buffet the floating city from waves. The first step in turning a lagoon into a city is designing a giant concrete hull that engineers can screw to the seabed as a foundation. Meanwhile, a local construction company will build housing units in a nearby shipyard. The homes are all designed in bright pastel colors, a nod to the style of traditional Maldives fishing villages. When they're finished, the homes will be towed to the site and attached to the concrete hull. The attachments are actually telescoping steel stilts, allowing the homes to rise as needed with water levels. And that makes it pretty much future-proof, even if the sea level rises. It's all based on Dutch technology that's been used for years on houseboats. In addition to its 5,000 homes, the floating city will include hotels, shopping and restaurants, as well as a marina, so people have a way to get there and back. So who is it all for? From the beginning, the plans for the floating city called for keeping costs affordable to Maldivians. The latest proposal describes it as mixed use and promises to include both luxury and everyday services. They are also pursuing international buyers and offering them residency permits. Prices range from $150,000 for a studio to $250K for a single family home. But what is the average income of locals? The only numbers we could verify are from the National Bureau of Statistics from the Maldives themselves. And they state that the average household income in 2016 was around $20,500 per year. And even if we factor in inflation, that's still pretty steep for most locals. On top of that, what will turning a lagoon into a city mean for the environment? It's an important question for a project designed as a response to global warming. And global warming is definitely coming, as the Earth's average temperature from this year to 2029 is already likely to exceed the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit. And when it comes to this topic in particular, it's important to be aware of the facts, especially with headlines that are often just designed to grab attention, rather than inform. So how can we see through this? For example here, our long-term sponsor Ground News analyzed over 200 articles on this very topic and created this bias comparison. You can check them out at our link ground.news/mega or scan our QR code. Left-leaning coverage vividly underscores the urgent crisis, with terms like dangerous rise or killer heat. By contrast, right-leaning headlines describe significant warming trends without urging action or highlighting extreme impacts. Same story, but different angles, and Ground News lets you see them all. It's an independent platform that compares how different news outlets across the political spectrum cover the same story. So if you want to get balanced information, go check them out at our link ground.news/mega or scan our QR code for 40% off their top-tier Vantage plan. So it's only $5 a month. And now let's take a look at the impact of the floating city on the environment. To minimize negative effects, they chose a brain coral shape. The idea is to let as much light through to the lagoon as possible. One big block of shade could block out the marine life below it. But the brain coral pattern allows a balance of shadow and light the designers say will have little impact. In fact, the project mission calls for construction to even enhance marine life. They're planning out to put artificial coral made out of glass foam on the underside of the floating pontoons. And the hope is that the glass foam could spur the growth of real coral. So the floating structures should have minimal impact on the environment. But what about the seafloor? The original plan for Maldives' floating city called for no dredging. That meant the environmental impacts might be small. But 2 years after the design was unveiled, the government revealed that the plans had changed. Builders would in fact need to dredge sand out of the lagoon to accommodate so many floating structures. That's a big deal. Dredging can have real environmental impacts. It can smother coral and seagrass, and it can alter the natural flow of ocean currents. But we still don't know what the exact impact is gonna be, since no environmental impact assessment has been made public yet. And that raises another question. How is it all going? The plan for Maldives' floating city was unveiled in 2021, and 2 years later the project revealed a prototype it calls the First Island. It's the first 4 buildings on a pontoon in a different location. But there doesn't seem to be much progress since then. As of 2025, there are no signs that dredging or construction has begun. And that's despite the fact that it was supposed to open up to residents in 2027. Buildings that float is one way the Maldives can respond to global warming, but that only solves part of the problem. Tourism, or to be more precise, finances, is the other one. After COVID hit and tourism around the world shut down, the island nation accumulated more and more debt. The tourists eventually returned, but the country's finances never fully recovered. That's why moving forward, the Maldives want to build an economy based on more than tourism and fishing. And in search of new revenue, the Maldives has embraced a plan to build this giant offshore financial hub. The new project was just announced this May, and it's driven by an $8.8 billion partnership with the Qatari sheikh. Maldives Island Financial Center, also known as MIFC, will be built just off the island of Hulu Malé. That's a reclaimed island just northeast of Malé. Over the past 25 years, Hulu Malé has been dredged with millions of cubic meters of sand to bring it back above sea level. And if it all goes as planned, Phase 2 of the reclaimed island will now include an offshore extension for MIFC. And this will essentially be a global crypto zone and tax haven. Maldives International Financial Center will have no corporate tax, no inheritance tax, and no residency requirement. It's an attempt to turn the Maldives into a global business center, promising access to emerging markets in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. The plans for MIFC are still in the design stage, but there are already lots of promises. At the heart will be an innovation hub, a fancy way of saying a 3,500 person convention center. They're promising to target finance conventions and blockchain hackathons. Next to the convention center will be 3 towers for offices and apartments. The design plans to house 6,500 people and accommodate nearly 30,000 visitors on any given day. Beyond the standard mix of hotels and retail, MIFC is pledging to include sport facilities, an international school, and even a museum of oceanography. Supposedly, the island will be powered with green energy, with cars and logistics infrastructure all kept underground, so the island can be friendly to pedestrians. This luxury financial hub also comes with its own high-end transportation, a direct airport link, seaplane terminals and helipads, and a new yacht marina. The president of the Maldives, Mohamed Muitzu, has called MIFC the nation's launchpad to become a developed nation by 2040. MIFC aims to open for business in 2030 and eventually contribute more than $1 billion a year to Maldives' economy. With a current GDP of $7 billion, that extra billion could have a major impact on the country's future. MIFC is just one chapter in Maldives' effort to modernize its infrastructure. The nation has been building on a grand scale for years now, and they aim to continue if they can find the funds. 2018 finally marked the opening of Sina Malé Bridge, which connects crowded Malé to the international airport. Before that, there was no land connection at all. That bridge was originally called the China-Maldives Friendship Bridge, with China partly granting and partly lending the $200 million construction costs. However, combined with other loans from China, this has increased the Maldives' dependence. So the next administration of the Maldives raised alarms, and the country has since turned away from China, leaning more towards India when it needs money. Meanwhile, the Sina Malé Bridge has proven to be a massive success. Being able to get to the airport without a boat has been great for the economy. That one should be no surprise to anyone. Sina Malé was the first bridge to connect any of the Maldives islands. And inspired by that success, the country is building more. While Sina Malé connected Malé to its northeast neighbor, the new Tila Malé Bridge extends Malay's reach to the west, linking the capital to 3 neighboring islands. This bridge will span more than 6 kilometers. In fact, this $500 project is considered the largest ever infrastructure project in the Maldives. The schedule for Tila Malé Bridge has been extended once, and it's now slated to be finished in September 2026. All of these developments expand upon the capital city Malé, but the Maldives is also looking to build out infrastructure in its second biggest city, Adu. Adu city is located on the southern tip of the country, more than 500 kilometers south of Malé. Like all of the Maldives, Adu is part of a ring of coral reef islands, and the plan now is to expand Adu by connecting it to the other islands in its ring. The Hankedy Bridge opened earlier this year, connecting Adu city with its southern neighbor and an international airport. And it's just the first step. Next up, builders are tackling the much bigger Adu Bridge. This one will span more than 13 kilometers to connect Hithadu just south of Adu city with Hulhumetu all the way to the east. These new bridges on Adu Atoll are an attempt to draw in tourists. They make it easier to explore the reef islands in this ring, and they make them all accessible to the same airport. Because even though the Maldives seem eager to diversify beyond tourism, the tourists themselves seem eager to keep coming. And several new giant luxury resorts are slated to open in the Maldives in the next few years. Just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying this video so far, consider subscribing. That one click can help us a lot to grow and produce better videos in the future. Okay, so luxury tourism in the Maldives is only getting bigger. As one example, the Zamami Island Resort is scheduled to open in 2026. It features the Maldives' first super yacht marina and even an underwater restaurant. Meanwhile, Dubai developers are funding Zamana Ocean Views, a luxury resort built to the vision of fashion designer Elie Saab. That project comes with a price tag of $600 million and is scheduled to open in 2029. All of these new resorts are possible because of a massive expansion of Velana International Airport, the main travel hub to and from the Maldives. That expansion began 10 years ago with a project cost of $1 billion. This October, Velana will finally open the doors on a whole new terminal, allowing the Maldives to accommodate 7 million passengers each year. That's an increase of 40%, which means that tourism in the Maldives has lots of room to grow. So what do you think? Will all these measures secure the future of this paradise, or will they actually do the opposite? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm curious to read them, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.